Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jen Marples Show. Today, I've got a gorgeous guest. Her name is Erin Keating. And Erin Keating makes hot stuff for women over 40.
Yes, I do.
Woo! See, I think you might know where this is going. But she is the founder of Hotter Than Ever, which is a company that she just created about a year ago that has media, experiences, and products and events that empower and light up the lives of women over 40. So we love this. You already know you're going to love this conversation. And her mission is to help liberate women in midlife to break the unconscious rules we've been following to become freer, happier, sexier, and more self-expressed. Woo, can I get a hell yes?
Amen, sister.
Woo! And Erin's got some fancy credentials. She's an Emmy and Peabody Award-winning media veteran. She's worked for Comedy Central, IFC, and she created original content for Snapchat. And she's the host of the Hotter Than Ever podcast, which yours truly was just on a few weeks ago. And she has a weekly Substack newsletter called Hotter Than Ever. And she is going to tell you about all the wonderful things she's got cooking for all of us, women over 40, during the course of this interview. And she's just a delight. She is a former, or she's not a former, she's one of us. She is an entrepreneurial badass in her 50s, doing the thing, doing it scared, showing up, knowing she's got a mission, and she's here to serve all of us. So I am just so excited, Erin, to have you on the show today, and cannot wait to dig into a juicy conversation. Let that be a little double entendre.
Oh, Jen, I love you. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to dig into everything.
We're going to dig into all the things. So let's start with your story, because you are a kind of a baby new entrepreneur. You've been in business for about a year, and so you haven't always done this. So there's going to be a lot of lessons to extract from you in that regard. And of course, dig into what you're doing, what all the hot stuff is all about. So tell us how this all started. Where did you start? How did it come to be? And what does the future look like?
Yeah, thank you. Teed up beautifully. I was a direct deposit girl. I was a 20-year media industry executive. I started my career at Comedy Central and sort of worked my way up to running scripted originals at Snapchat, sort of lots of stops in what used to be called the cable industry along the way. And sort of if you map my career, it maps to how media has changed through every era. But what happened to me was really the beginning of this new chapter was I got COVID. So I was working really hard in my last job and giving it, 150% like we do. And I had little kids and an unhappy marriage. And I was sort of the anchor for everything and everyone, holding it all together. And the thing that was getting neglected was, me. So I got sick with COVID. I ended up with COVID pneumonia. I had to go to the hospital. And the thing that happened to me in a private, single room in UCLA hospital was, it felt to me like Canyon Ranch. It felt to me like, oh my God, I can breathe. I'm in a place by myself where other people are taking care of me. I'm not well, but I'm going to get well. And I could hear my own thoughts for the first time. It was so profound. All the flowers that people sent, the biggest bouquet was from my job. And that is a metaphor. I just started thinking different thoughts. I got in a fight with my husband the day that he was picking me up from the hospital. I just thought, this isn't how things are supposed to go. This is not how things are supposed to. This isn't right. This isn't the life I want. And I started to have all these big thoughts. And, I think it started with the marriage, which had sort of been on the rocks for 5 years, and I had been trying to keep it together. And We agreed to go to couples counseling for the last time. And it didn't work. I didn't think it would. I hoped it would, like I had hoped all those other times. It didn't work. And my husband moved out. And I started to sort of rediscover myself and my sexuality, which had been dormant for 10 years, no sex the last 10 years of my marriage. So I started to date, and we can go into that and what that looked like. It's been a wild ride. And then I got laid off from my job. So it was like everything that was sort of underpinning the foundation of my life, all these good girl things that I had done, right? The good girl career, the climbing the ladder, the marriage, the children, the everything looks good from the outside, that what I call the keeping up with the Joneses life. I'm just going to bring that phrase back into common conversation. I really had the opportunity, as I sort of stood in the middle of the ashes, to say, what is it that I want the rest of my life to look like? Who do I want to be now? It's so incredible to have a clean slate. 2 weeks after I left the hospital, I turned 50. I think that was also a huge part of what catalyzed my change. So I went on a retreat in Italy. I did a little Eat, Pray, Love action. I did a week in Umbria with Sherry Salata, who your listeners might know. She was one of Oprah's partners in running her cable network OWN, and she was an EP on Oprah's show. And Sherry, Sherry helped me to put together, really to unearth the vision for what I wanted to do next. And I knew I wanted to do a podcast. I don't know how or why I knew I wanted to do a podcast. I was listening to them. I loved them. I'm a media maker. That's what I know how to do. That's my training. That's my, 10, 20, 30,000 hours. And so I thought, well, I can do that. It's got to be easier than television. And I did that, and, we were off and running. And I knew I wanted to talk about pleasure. I knew I wanted to talk about reinvention. I knew I wanted to talk about like Gen X and kind of where we are in this moment. And then I realized the audience for the show could be even wider than that, and that there were a lot of millennial women who were also feeling the things that I was feeling. So that's kind of how it got started. And then the vision for it has grown and grown. So it started as a podcast. It is a podcast. It is a Substack. But I also am planning to develop a slate of film and television under the banner of Hotter Than Ever. I'm doing live events, and I have some amazing product ideas, and a fun product mix, which I'll pitch to you. Yeah, I really see the brand as something that can be celebratory and positive, encouraging and empowering, but not full of shit. Like, I think there's a lot of like fake gurus and wellness stuff out there. A lot of self-help influencers out in the world, where they don't have the full conversation and they don't dig into all the real stuff for us. So what I really see Hotter Than Ever as being pro-pleasure, pro-power, which is about your agency and your voice and what you want from your life, and profound, because you don't get to this age and want to have shallow conversations.
No, we're done with that.
Yeah.
We're done with that. A couple of things. First of all, we need to give a shout out to Sherry Salata, because when you mention her, I still get her emails. She was really one of the first ones.
Yep.
Who had a podcast for women over 50. I can't remember what she called it.
No, it was something about turning 50, being 50, and she did it with her best friend.
Yeah. And then it changed because then she turned 60, but she was really, and I started listening to her going deep around the COVID time too. When I was going through, what am I have these ideas, where is this all going to go? And she was really one of those first voices. So we just
Yep.
need to shout her out for 1 second, because I know she's continuing to do work and retreats and all that kind of thing, but she doesn't have the podcast anymore. But because I too thought about podcasting for years. So she was one of my muses way
Yeah.
back when. And you're just reminding me that, and I say this all the time to my listeners, that you never know where you're going to get ideas. We have to open up. We've got to listen to a lot of women, hear a lot of experiences, because we can get a lot of support from women we don't even know. And that's such a beautiful thing about this life and being so connected. What I really love is that you are focusing in on what I think we really tend to ignore, which is first putting ourselves first. And then obviously you've named everything hotter than ever. So let's just take a pause for that for a second, because hotter than ever, you guys, when I met Erin, I was like, hotter than ever, double entendre on purpose, right? She's like, oh yeah. I'm like, because we truly could be hot if we don't have our hormone patches on.
Right.
But truly, when you get to midlife, I actually feel hotter than ever. I just don't give a shit anymore. And we could have a whole podcast episode dedicated to that.
Yeah.
So I just love that play on words, because it is true. And we both want women to believe that. And I just got off another conversation with somebody about the same thing. It's like, the only reason why we're not feeling it's because the patriarchy and just how we've been raised. We're like, I'm firmly steeped in Gen X, and we've been told we're put out to pasture after 40, hell, even after 30. I mean, when you look around, all the models are like 19 and 20. So we were feeling old in our 30s. So now we're all in our 50s. And what are we looking at? Like who are what's the representation, right? So I love that part of what you're doing is wanting to create content for us.
Yeah. For us, I want to put our stories out there, and I want to tell stories to us about what's possible for us. Because just speaking on the media side, having been a TV executive most of my career, I programmed to younger men in the comedy world. I programmed to Gen Z on Snapchat. I've never programmed for this audience. And I've never liked the way we were marketed to with Oxygen and Lifetime. I always felt like we were sort of ghettoized. And what has happened is that the programming that is made for us is about crime. So the Law and Order SVUs, the 600 episodes of Snapped, 600 episodes of Snapped where women kill their husbands because they're being abused. I mean, every true crime podcast, there is so much of this stuff for us. And even things like Nine Perfect Strangers or whatever that sort of feels like, oh, that could be great. Like it ends up being a crime story at the end of the day. Because I think consciously or unconsciously, the culture is invested in this narrative of victimization and revenge. And so they feed us the stuff that makes us scared. And then that keeps us from claiming our power. When how many thousands of other stories and topics and thrilling things could we be talking about in the media? And like, I'm excited for what is possible when we can show women of our age being as sexy and self-expressed and powerful and cool as we actually are. Like that feels like a much needed piece of the puzzle in terms of how we reframe aging in the culture.
Ugh, hallelujah. When you were saying that, it was making me think of, the older days of Sex in the City, when Samantha Jones, who was always, she was at least 8 to 10 years older than everybody else. I remember she was like the first one to turn 50 and she made her own money. She wasn't relying on anyone. She lived life by her own rules. And like, she's like our avatar, I think, right now for what's possible. And her character was sort of revolutionary. And I wish, too bad she's not on the reboot, because I loved her character. She was actually, I think, the most soulful, heart-centered character on that whole show. But she was the one who was working and making her own money and making her own way and creating the rules and living how she wanted to live.
Had a lot of agency, which is something that I am so interested in. She was saying how her life was going to go. She was not following the rules and she was hooking up with these hot young guys. And, she was following her own muse. And like, that show is a gay male fantasy, but like, I want to make the version of that show that reflects the archetypes of the women that really exist today.
Right. I think it's such white space because you either have reality shows, which of course aren't reality, and it's about women tearing each other down, which you're not about, I'm not about.
Housewives, how retrogressive is that?
I mean, yeah, I can't with all of that. And there's so many incredible, like productive, amazing women right now. And for the women listening, if you're not doing something, this is not pressure to have to do anything either. It's really all about stepping into who you are and doing whatever the fuck you want. Right.
Yeah. And it's not judgment for enjoying the media that you enjoy. I just have a perspective where I can see what's not there. I'm a development executive in my core. So every time I meet an incredible woman, I think, well, what about her story? What about her story? And I can't help it. I just want to tell them, you know.
I love it. You're the woman for the job because storytelling is everything, and your whole concept of being profound. And it's really, to me, that means like being authentic. Like we're done with the bullshit. We need deep, true conversations and connection with other women and to ourselves. So we're done with that surface level stuff. It just doesn't serve anybody anymore. It doesn't serve us publicly. It doesn't serve us in private. There's just no place for it anymore. And so that's one of the drums I bang really loud.
100%.
I want to ask you this question. So hotter than ever, you're creating all this content. Why do you think it's so important for us to be tapping back into our pleasure? Because I know we've tended to put ourselves last, to date with the kids and the partnerships and work and all this stuff. And probably a lot of women listening. And you got emotional when you were talking about your breakdown and you're in the hospital and like being disconnected. And I've cried many a tear about it too. It's like this death of like, who are we? So how does pleasure, like, how do we come back to ourselves through pleasure?
Yeah, I love this question, Jen, because I was like a head without a body for a really long time, right? I was just like what I could accomplish, how I could serve, how I could parent, how I could wife, how I could work. And I really only had time to be a mom and a worker. I barely had time to be a wife, and I didn't really want to be a wife after a certain point. But the person that got lost in all of it was me. And we are all sexual beings because we are human beings. That is how we are made. We are all built with senses that can light us up. And pleasure for me is like a wide range. Like I love sex and I'm pro sex. Like I'm all about it. But I'm also pro sitting in the sun and eating delicious food and taking edibles and feeling different feelings. And I am I'm pro experiences and getting out there and living your life and following your bliss. So I feel like pleasure can be a lot of different things, but what it isn't is cookie cutter, right? What it is personal. And how you connect to your pleasure is going to be different than how everyone else connects to their pleasure. So for you, there may be a specific sensual experience. Like everyone always heard about Oprah would take these baths and there would be like 30 candles all around. And that was like her pleasure zone. There's that, or you're like into a particular kink and you go out and investigate that because you deserve to fulfill your desires, to identify your desires and fulfill them. You get one life. When we look back in our 90s, God willing, when we're 120, and we look at how beautiful and how vibrant and how healthy and how sexy we were in our 50s and 60s and 70s and 40s and 30s, like, do we want to have deprived ourselves of the things that are just being a human being on planet Earth, like our senses and experiencing life beyond just the intellectual, beyond the achievement, beyond capitalism? I just think like we deserve to feel good. And so for me, I had kind of lost my orgasm like over the course of the 10 years that I didn't have sex. I had kind of lost I had been a sexy, kind of slutty younger woman, and proud of it. Um, and losing that part of myself was heartbreaking to me. It just made me feel like, wait, like I liked that person I was when I was 27, you know? And so figuring out my way back to pleasure, and for me, it's come through a lot of different modes of pleasure, but sex specifically, that was so incredible because I was like, oh my God, I'm alive. I'm vital. I feel things like I'm capable of so much pleasure, and we all are. And so that was kind of the gift that I started to give to myself, was like, oh wow, like I I didn't remember that I was this person. I didn't remember that I was sexy. I didn't remember that I was attractive. And I started to walk around like a taxi cab with the light on. That, like, if someone's looking for a taxi cab, they're gonna see me because I was lit up. I figured out how to light myself back up. And how fucking amazing is that? I want that for every woman who feels like, well, I'm a mom, so I'm just wearing my sweatpants. And, a friend of mine I had lunch with, and she said she had been really successful in her career as a choreographer. And once she had kids, she was a stay-at-home mom. And a friend of hers came to visit who she hadn't seen in a while. And her friend was all like dressed up and tricked out and all like sparkly. And she was like, I'm going to put on my good sweatpants because I'm just a mom now. And it's like, nobody's just a mom. Nobody's just in anything. And after she met up with her friend called her and said, I'm worried about you. Where are you? You're gone. Like, you're not, like, you don't have to wear this mask, this costume, you don't have to take on all these trappings. You can still be a version of who you were. So I was very moved by that story, and I felt like, God, there's so many of us who can relate to that.
So many, so many. And I've had some other guests, and I feel like we can't stop talking about this. I shouldn't say some. I've had a few who've just really talked about, by us tapping into our pleasure and who we are, and and unpacking all the shit
Yeah.
that we need to unpack to get to that place.
Yeah.
Well, the world doesn't want us to do that, because when we do that, we are in our truest power. And that's not power that puts other people down. That is power that lifts everybody up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get all, it's not me like all anti-patriarchy, this conversation, but that's rattling to the status quo, because when we're in our power and in our truth and we operate a different way, it's scary for the powers that be. And so it's like, watch out, world, once we actually all step in. And my heart, when you talk about like that woman who's in the sweatpants and I'm just a mom. And first of all, just saying just a mom,
So belittles
it's
what
like,
it is to be a mom.
it's like the hardest freaking, it's bringing me to my knees. As we record this, my son is graduating from high school in 2 weeks. I mean, parenting is no joke. So we have to get over the just. And I hear this all the time. And I said, women, whatever you're doing, stop belittling yourself and you don't have to do a goddamn thing to be worthy in this world.
That's
Not
right.
one freaking thing. And we all lose ourselves. I think we all have a story, right? And so I'm so glad we're having this conversation, and that you've got your podcast and you're going to create all this for us, because we need to be reminded. Because it's like a muscle, it's like that muscle memory. Once you don't do it, like everyone, it's like kids and work and this, and everybody's first, and you're like pleasure. And immediately everyone just goes to sex, and you're not even saying that. That's a nice sort of cherry on top, I guess. But it's like having that time by yourself, you're getting a massage, having somebody else touch you, like
Right.
rub your head, rub your feet, like whatever that means, walk in the daffodils, but just to come back right to yourself and take time for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, and I think for those of us who sort of prioritize career and success and all these things, like, there's just a lot of lying we do to ourselves about what is making us happy. And, who we are and who we have to be. And I just spent so many years lying, just because I was so scared. I had built this whole thing. I had built this whole structure. And, I had been really successful in my career, by selling my voice and my advocacy and my evangelism to companies, right? And I just started to feel like, where am I in all of this? And I took great care of my kids and my husband and my household. I was in charge of everything except me, and I think it's possible to be successful and to have a happy marriage and to be a great parent and also feel lit up about yourself and your life and your sex life and your body, and to be much more integrated than I think we let ourselves just sort of be parceled off to all these other people and things in our lives.
Erin, you are bringing something up that I think everyone deals with, of the disconnection, the playing life by the rules that we didn't create. It was the thing that was supposed to bring us ultimate happiness. And we woke up and realized, oh gosh, I'm in a hospital thinking it's Canyon Ranch. I have been there. I actually have a story. It'll be in my future book where, no joke, I was living in the city at the time. I had 3 kids in diapers because my son was 2. My girls were newborns. I remember being in the kitchen going, what happens if I punch out that window? I get to go to the hospital and have everybody leave me alone.
Yeah.
And I know you're so passionate about what you're doing because of what happened to you. Same as me. I don't want any woman to get to that place and certainly ignore. And then I kept on going for 10 more years, just about before it all sort of crashed and burned. And I talked about that on your podcast. And so, ladies listening, if you find yourself in that spot right now, just go get the help and know you are worthy of receiving it. Before I forget to ask this, your podcast, you have so many incredible guests on the show.
Yeah.
And they kind of span, you've had Eve Rodsky on. So you're talking about, basically all of our unpaid labor.
Yep.
That's really one.
Division of domestic labor is a big one.
It's a huge one. You've got women coming on to talk about sex, you've an empowerment and all of that. So when you're going to put together the show and everything that you're releasing, how are you sort of zeroing in on the guests, A, and then B, what is it you've learned from interviewing all these incredible women throughout the last year of your podcast?
Yeah. The booking process is very intuitive, and it's relationship based. So, I get my best guests from other guests, because I say, okay, like, what the show is and, what we do here, like, who else should be in this conversation? I am always looking for people who can talk about career reinvention, life reinvention. I am always looking for people who can talk about empowered sexuality, and pleasure. I am always looking for people who can unpack some of the bullshit we see out there on social media. There's a lot of sort of mental health garbage out there. And one thing I've been doing recently is, like, you can't get to your pleasure and your power if you are struggling with childhood trauma or psychological stuff, So I've had someone on to talk about, like, why we fall in love with narcissists. And what about like, you hear about nervous system dysregulation. What is that? What do you mean? What is trauma? What is PTSD? Like, let's really understand it, understand how to help ourselves, understand what's available to us out there, and what the new thinking is, around how we heal, so that we can get on with the business of having fun and having an awesome life and enjoying ourselves. Because for me, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about, like, how do I have the best possible rest of my life? And so I have learned so much One thing is that none of these incredibly accomplished women think they're all that accomplished, which is sort of part of the disease of self-esteem that lives in women, where we are just, it's tough for us to believe in ourselves. But I think at this point in our lives, our expertise has proven to us that we are qualified. We do check all those boxes on the job description, whereas when we were younger, we would check 5 out of the 10 and be like, well, I'm not really qualified. I'm not going to apply. It's like now it's like, oh yeah, I've done that. I can do that. And yeah, I want to do that, but I don't want to do that. I've done that and that didn't feel, and I'm going to go this way. And, so I just feel like we know ourselves so well at this point, and we're starting to feel, especially as our estrogen drops, more confident, less focused on accommodation. So one of the people that I had on was a sex therapist. And she deals a lot with women in menopause. And she talked a lot about Eva Clay. So a sex therapist named Eva Clay came on, and she deals a lot with women in midlife. And she told me this thing that I've thought about every single day since she said it. As our estrogen drops, our desire to accommodate others also drops, because you need to accommodate others when you are fertile, when you have children, when you need the tribe to accept you, right? But at this point, we don't really need that. And so we are free to step into whoever we want to be without needing the approval and the accommodation of the culture around us. Sherry Salata said, everything is a love problem and only you can solve it. I think for me, that means everything comes down to loving yourself, your self-talk, how you take care of yourself. Because you do all of those things, you do everything to nurture you, you show up totally different in the world, right? I also loved Anne Choquette. She was the editor of 17 magazine. And now she runs a networking group for women. And she talked about women and power, and how women don't do power like men do power. Men do power over, women do power with, and how collaborative we are, and how our instinct is to help and support each other and encourage each other. And Jen, you're the perfect example of this. We really connect with each other and then want to bring each other up. So there's just been all of these beautiful gems in these conversations, and a lot of humility from these incredibly accomplished, incredibly successful people who have a lot of expertise to share, and also are on the same journey that we're on. I really always want people to talk about their personal experience and what brought them to where they are. It's easy to come on and preach your expertise, but I want to know, like, why did you get called to this? Because I think that's what I want us all to be doing, is listening for what we're being called to in this chapter of our lives.
Oh, we're such kindred spirits in this regard, because it's the same. Because God, there's just so much there. First of all, I have to say, with the women, everybody, and I'll put myself in that camp, as much as I'm confident in certain areas, it's just been drilled into us to question to a certain degree, because again, we were playing by rules that we didn't make.
Oh, and we can't win.
And you can't win. Right? And so now you might as well. And I tell everyone, it's like, you just got to be you. And then the right people are coming to you. But I get calls from colleagues all the time, women, like you're saying, even with your guests. And I know some of those guests that you've had on paper, you're like, why the hell would she be humble? Or why would she be questioning herself? We all do. Yeah. We all do. And especially we have those, maybe it's not every day, but we have those days. And you're like, what am I doing? We're so hard on ourselves. And I think truly, it is a product of how we were raised, because there was I kind of was going deep into this whole, I was watching this movie about venture capital and women, the abysmal amount of money that goes to women founders. And they say investors invest in men based on their potential, and they invest in women based on what they've done. And the same thing holds true with jobs. So when you're talking about those little job categories, a guy will be like 20 job, I have one. I'm
I'll
totally
learn
down
it.
for
I
the
can
job,
learn it.
dude. Yeah.
I'm
Like
awesome. Like,
I got 1 out of 20. Like, what's not to love? A woman is 20 out of 20 is still going, oh, maybe I need one more PhD, or maybe I should have been 3 years at Google, not 2.75.
right.
And it's just a bunch of bullshit.
It's a bunch of bullshit. And the gift of getting older is the fuck it. For me, I never had the fuck it when I was younger. I never had I started as an actor when I was in my teens and 20s, and I never could say fuck it in an audition. I could never just go in there and leave it all on the floor. You know what I mean? I was like, do they like me? Do they think I'm fat? How, how do I please? And that's how you fail. Especially as an actor, when you're supposed to show up revealed, right? You're supposed to show up with all the juice and all the real stuff. And I did not have the fuck it until this chapter of my life. And it hit me like a ton of bricks in that hospital room, which is just like, what am I holding myself back from? Why am I giving it all away for free? Like, and not keeping any for myself. And now I just feel like, it was scary to launch a podcast and also to talk about my personal life. It's pretty confessional. But I do it because I think other people need to hear the truth, and they need to hear vulnerability. And because fuck it. If no one tells the truth, then everyone just keeps lying. And if everyone just keeps lying, we stay unhappy. So I'll go first. I have a friend who says leaders go first. Like, leaders go first. Okay, fine. I'll go first. It's uncomfortable. I want to, though. I want to because fuck it. Like, I'm here, got one life, got this voice, got this experience. I want to use it for good.
Right. And you're being called. And I know I'm being called. And the more we step in, so I like to say too that we're taking one for the team.
Yeah.
And going out, because once you do, like, it's like not giving a fuck, and it's like, you're not too fine. Mine comes out as you're not too fucking old, which is like, you cannot care what people think, and not giving up. It's a middle finger to the patriarchy. I actually was just at a Memorial Day party, and a friend of mine said, she's like, I don't know, Jen, if you need to hear this, if you need somebody to say that they're proud of you, because our kids have gone to preschool together now, her daughter's in college and my son's about to leave. And I said, I'll take it. What do you got to say? And she's like, you just don't care. And you're going out there and speaking the truth. And that's what you're doing. And I said, thank you for recognizing that. And, it wasn't easy the first time you get in front of a camera and a mic, because, especially with everyone knows my career, I was pushing everybody else forward my whole career.
Me too.
And so same with you. So we're coming from behind the scenes and putting ourselves first, or in front rather. And it's hard, but we're showing it. We're showing everyone the way, and you don't have to go as crazy as we are and do podcasts and do all this stuff. But if you take one small step, because you listen to Erin, you listen to me, you listen to any one of the women out there who are doing this, then we've all done our job.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want you to feel good.
I want to feel good, Erin.
Oh my God, totally. And Chardonnay is just not going to cut it.
No.
Right?
On so many levels. I've had the menopause doctors on too. It's like, it is not, alcohol's not serving us. I'm not saying I'm a teetotaler, but it's not doing what we need to do.
No,
let's talk about that
solution that's been offered to us, right? Oh, let's get our mom juice, like,
or antidepressants.
Let's anesthetize ourselves, right? Yeah. Like wine and SSRIs. It's like, actually, no, like actually meditation and journaling. If you can, you don't have to do it every day. I certainly don't do it every day. Like, I am not great at routine, but like when I do it, I feel good. I exercise now. I didn't used to really exercise. Like, I didn't really have time for that, Therapy, like, do that. And also take edibles or mushrooms and like, microdose. Fucking try something different. I mean, there's so much fun to be had out there in the world, and you can have it. You may not have to negotiate the time, and people might be upset with you. And they may wonder what the hell happened to you and why you changed so much and how you're so different. They may not like that. They may love it though. They may love it, and they probably will love to see you shine.
You know what? You brought up two important. I just want to say one caveat,
Yeah.
just so everyone knows that we're not anti. If you need
Oh my God.
anxiety
No,
drugs or anything, like you do what you need to do.
do it,
All
but
we're
it's not the
saying
only
is that it's just having that self-reflection and inquiry, and the fact that it's what we've been marketed,
option.
pills and booze as a cure-all, which again, it's not, because it keeps us small.
Oh, dude, I
All
was
the
on
solutions.
Lexapro during
Yeah.
COVID. I had never been on antidepressants before, but I was like, I hit such a low that I was like, "Ooh, I could use some help," you
And
know?
that's super healthy. Like
Yeah.
you need, everyone needs to raise their hand and do that.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing is you made me think of this, because I do know, and we all know, if we look around in our friend circles and social circles and things like that, two things happen when you start to step up and out. One, you sort of notice the women that are in pain and who really want to do something. It's part of the reason I'm doing the show, is to give someone a glimmer of hope that it can be different.
Yeah.
Just like what you went through. Like, you don't need to go through life dead and like put your literal PhD on a shelf and not use it because you're in service of your kids or your family.
Right.
And there is so much pain that I see around me of women not stepping up. And I know, because we've been tamped down by society. We've been told, oh, you've been out of the market for so long, you couldn't possibly go back and get a job or start your own business. I mean, there's
Of
so
course
many
you can.
messages. So, but we're here to say, of course you can. So it's time to start listening to the right people and surrounding yourself with positive, supportive people. And the second part of that is, and I know this is a big part of what you like, the whole profound thing of like having this deep connection and community and surrounding yourself by other women. We're sort of on this, call it like the self-empowerment path, for lack of a better term, that we just need to know that women are out there. And if you put yourself out there, that's what you're going to find. If
Yeah.
you think all you're going to find is depressed people or women who aren't on your side, that's what you're going to find. And people think it's revolutionary, but truly, if you walk into a room and go, I'm going to meet amazing women today, boom, you're going to meet amazing women.
Yeah. Yeah. And amazing men.
And amazing. Ooh,
If that's what you're into. You
well,
know? I mean, I feel like yeah, a lot of people notice that light being on,
it's
and
super
they
attractive. I'm
yeah.
going to completely pivot this conversation because I
Right.
remembered something I wanted to ask you. I have a lot of things I want to ask you, but I could talk to you for 5 hours.
No,
But you and I
seriously.
have talked offline about this. Okay, but you said man, and it made me think of the Anne Hathaway movie. I can't remember the name of it that just dropped on. Is it Netflix?
Oh,
No,
the
Amazon Prime.
idea of you, the
The
idea.
Idea of You, Prime
Mhm.
Video, right? It was on Amazon Prime. So my girls were like, "Oh, we're not going to watch that." I'm like, "Well, I am," and
Yeah.
I loved it. And even
It's
Kara
beautiful.
Swisher loved it, because I'm a total stan for Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway.
Yeah.
I just love this movie. And the thing that was beautiful about this movie is that Anne Hathaway's in her early 40s and she has this torrid affair and love affair
Yeah.
with this hot pop star. And it's just showing, it's like revolutionary. All the media out there, it's like, oh, I'm an older woman and a younger man. Like, really, are we still having this conversation that this is revolutionary? But I was crying there because I was like, this is women. I'm going to start getting emotional. Like, women are so fucking beautiful. And like, no one gets to tell us that we are done at any age.
No. No, they don't. And I will say, like, if you are an older woman and you want the Anne Hathaway story and you are, available to date, like, there are hot younger men who want you. Like, it is no joke out there on the apps. Like, I set my age restrictions like over 40, and the number of like guys in their 20s and 30s who are like, "Hey, I'm a little young for you, but like, oh my God." I mean, they're so beautiful, but they're so, lots of drawbacks to young men, but they're available is the thing.
They're
And if
available.
that's your fantasy, it doesn't just have to be a fantasy.
No.
Like, you live your life however you want. And the great thing about that movie is first of all, it's proof positive for what I'm doing, right? Like every single woman I know has watched that movie. And maybe it's a guilty pleasure because it is very Hollywood and it's freaking Anne Hathaway and she looks like she's 28. And you know, is a genuine movie star. But the only thing I'd do differently with that movie is I'd switch the roles. She has a best friend in that movie played by Annie Mumolo, who co-wrote Bridesmaids with Kristen Wiig, who's also a comic, and she looks normal. She looks normal. I would just have her be the protagonist. I would have her dreams come true and her fantasies come true. Because the fact is that you don't have to look like Anne Hathaway to have a torrid romance with a 24-year-old. Like,
No, you don't.
you know, but we need these stories. You know, we need these stories. That movie was written by, co-written by Jennifer Westfeldt and Michael Showalter, who directed it. Jennifer Westfeldt made a movie called Kissing Jessica Stein 20 years ago.
I remember that movie.
Yes. And she's been making a movie that reflects sort of the moment in her life that she's in every decade. And I'm so grateful we have women filmmakers out there like her, who tell an empathetic and very true story, even if it has like Hollywood candy coating on it.
I know. We need so much more, and we're gonna get that from you, I know, in the future, because you know, I think the Nancy Meyer movies are probably the Myers movies are all done. But I loved all those. The one with Meryl Streep, where she was like, you know, having an affair with the ex-husband, and then with Steve Martin, and this and that, and she's this. Of course, she's Meryl Streep, but still, we're actually showing a real woman who is older, like having pleasure, and like I've watched that movie. I can't count how many times I've watched that movie.
Yeah. Totally.
And we just need more of that.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question though before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Because you are new to your entrepreneur journey, and there are so many women listening who are at a crossroads and they're just, you know, waiting to start and waiting to kind of get off the sidelines. And you know, you've done it. And they're sitting on a dream.
Yeah.
I was sitting on my dream of a podcast for years. And then I just had to do it. So what would you say to those women, the ones that are sitting on the sidelines, waiting on a dream, or sitting on their dream rather, wanting to do something? They know something is burning deep down inside, but they're just not going after it. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say to them what Sherry Salata said to me on this retreat, which she said it once, and it sounded to me like she said it 100 times a day. How much time do you think you have left? Sorry.
Ooh.
We're not here forever. And if you have something burning in you, something your intuition and your gut and your heart and your spirit tells you need to do, put one foot on the path. You don't have to invent everything today. Get out a blank document and just start writing. You know, give yourself permission to dream. Give yourself permission to put words to a thing. Words are how things start to become real. I always find writing is the first step to everything. And whether that's like scrabble in your journal, dumping it all in there, bulleted lists, Post-its, your notes app, you can leave yourself an audio, you know. So today I'm going to give myself permission to talk about this thing that I'm dreaming about. Send it to yourself. Like the more that you give it space, time, energy, attention, it's like anything in your life, you know, the more you attend to your garden, the more it grows, you know, the more attention you give your kids that's positive, the better and happier they are. So you deserve that. And I would also say, like, figure out where you're lying, you know, listen to yourself and the stories you're telling yourself about what's possible for you. Because for me, I was like, I could never be a single mom. My mom was a single mom. I did not want to be a single mom. I have twins like you, Jen. And then I was like, what is that story? Maybe I can be a single mom because I can't be in this marriage anymore. You know? And maybe I can, like, I had a whole struggle about LinkedIn when I first started the podcast, because I knew I was going to be talking about spicier stuff and I was going to be really revealed personally, which I never was professionally. Like I was, collegial, but you didn't know what was going on behind the mask. And then I just took the mask off and started talking about what's real and what's so in my life. And I was like, how can I put that out there to my entire professional community on LinkedIn? And so gradually over time, I've sort of figured out how to do a little bit of that and use other mediums to express myself. But any moment where this is like a sticky, uncomfortable yuck, like, or I can't, or, I don't know how, you don't have to do it by yourself, and you can do it with baby steps. My strategy for life has always been slow and steady wins the race. I am never a person who feels like I'm going to be an overnight success. I'm 52. I'm just at the beginning of this journey. I'm going to build this thing brick by fucking brick, just by putting in the work every day. It doesn't magically happen. It's not how things happen. Things happen because you do things incrementally. That's all you have to do. One little thing. Give yourself permission to listen to that voice and take a tiny little step.
I love it. And then those steps.
And I turned into a preacher, but I really fucking believe it.
Where's the church? Sign me up. I'm coming. I'm coming in. No, I love that, because we tend to get overwhelmed with results and perfectionism, and we could talk for 3 more hours about that. But those little baby steps turn into, if you take one baby step every day, that's 365 steps in a year. What does that look like? What does that
mean? And you're not going to. You're going to take more and more and more, because the momentum starts to build and it starts to feel really good.
100%.
Go, what is my intuition telling me to do next? Like, that is my guide about people, about partnerships, about the direction of the business, about who I have as guests. I let my intuition guide me in a way that I would override my intuition all the time when I was in business, working for other people. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Every time I do it, I fucking regret it.
And that could be its own topic for another hour. Yeah. But if we don't listen to our intuition, it's our true knowing.
Yeah.
It's never led me wrong. Right. It's the brain, gut, whatever axis, the whole thing. So it's actually your brain. Your brain is telling you, stranger danger. Like, this is not a good thing. This is not a good partnership. That's not a good event. That's not a good guest. That's not this. It will never lead you astray. I mean, we could talk about that forever, but that was really, really great advice. So just baby steps, everyone, baby steps, and give yourself permission.
Yeah.
So before I ask you my final questions, what's next for Hotter Than Ever? So you've got the podcast and the Substack. So what's on Erin's vision board?
Oh my God, a Porsche.
I'll park mine next to yours. Mine is hot pink. Someone just sent me one yesterday.
Amazing. Mine has a big magnet on the side that says Hotter Than Ever, so I can write it off. Really what I am doing now is I'm starting to put all my content on YouTube. So I've got, I'll have everything up in video format on YouTube in the next month. I'm loving doing the Substack. It's really fun to stretch the muscle of writing. What is coming down the line is filmed versions of the podcast that look a little bit more like TV, a little bit more produced. Continuing to sort of get out there with my message to this community of women in midlife. I'm also working on a live show about dating online for women in midlife with an amazing friend of mine, because I think we all just need to sort of debunk some garbage about what that experience is like. And also I think it'd be a really fun night out. And then I'm building a slate of film and television and making plans for products. Okay, here's my product mix. Ready?
Get ready, everyone.
I want to do a line of sex toys. I want to do a line of edibles, so that it's like, I want to feel sexy. This is a libido enhancing edible. Like, this is, hotter than ever says, take this. Like, I believe it, I want it to be featured in Oprah magazine, if that still exists. And I want to do reading glasses because I can't see shit.
We got to make sure we're, taking the right amount of edibles. We got to put those glasses on. It's very important.
Yeah. I mean, everything I do has a little bit of a sense of humor. It's a little bit cheeky. But I believe that we can be deep and funny and fun and sexy all at the same time. And that's what I want to do. I don't want to, there are a lot of people out there who are building communities. I want community to swell up around Hotter Than Ever. And I want to serve that community with content and products and experiences. So that's what's on the agenda for me for the next 15 years.
Ooh, brick by brick, and it will happen. It will happen. So my final question for you is, what do you think the best thing is about being in midlife?
Oh, God. I just like myself. Like, I like myself. I enjoy myself. And because I enjoy myself, I enjoy other people. I think my expertise and my wisdom having caught up with me and my age, it just feels really good to own all of that, and to just show up as me in the world and not give a fuck. Like, I'm just me and you're just you, and we're not all things, and not everyone's going to like us because we don't like everybody. And I just don't feel like I have to be good or perfect anymore. Like, I just don't. I feel like I'm going to do my best. And if I fuck up, I'll apologize. But I just am so much looser and easier with myself than I was when I was younger. And it's so freeing.
I love that. What a great way to end. But you've got to finish the sentence that everybody finishes on this show. I'm not too fucking old to
be hotter than ever.
Duh. That was a slam dunk. That was an easy one.
It's a collab. There it is.
That's the ultimate collab. I'm not too fucking old to be hotter than ever.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, where can everybody find you, stalk you, support you, and get into all things Hotter Than Ever?
Thank you. Hotter Than Ever pod on all the socials. I have a website. You can sign up for the Substack there. You can go to Substack and sign up for the Substack, get on my mailing list. Yeah, I mean, just please come along for this ride.
It's going to be hotter than ever. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for being on the show. This has been an amazing conversation. We could talk for 5 hours, clearly.
I know. Seriously.
The running joke is my podcast manager always wants, like, we could have a shorter podcast. I'm like, I can't.
Yeah.
If anything, they're going to become longer because it's really everything to get me to do them like in an hour, because I love to talk. It's who I am. I don't, fuck it. Right. Right. To use one of your terms. Fuck it. I'm going to talk as long as I want. Yeah. Well, Erin, thank you so much. And it has been a joy chatting with you today.
You too, Jen. You're amazing. Thanks for all the great work you do.
Thanks.